This my two Satoshis, this my two Satoshis. Who need 2 cents when they can get double from stacking Toshis? Yeah, this my two Satoshis, this my two Satoshis. Tune in and get the latest and greatest from stacking Toshis.
Hola, hola, and buenos dias, GNGs. My name is Trek with 2Ks, and this is my two Satoshis brought to you here on CBTV. Sorry, let me move over a little bit so you can see it because it's right there. Basically, this is my two Satoshis, and what goes on is I talk about crypto news and I also talk about like non-crypto news, but it's like the things that come across my radar. And so I throw it out there. And so far, it seems like y'all are interested in the things that come across my radar as non-crypto news. So before I get into that though, let me just throw it out there and say, thank y'all for still tapping in. Thank y'all for still giving the likes, giving the comments, giving the thumbs up, and still sharing. We really do appreciate it. I appreciate it because it also says that basically, hey, what I'm saying is valid and y'all appreciate that. And I do want to say thank you for doing that. I also want to say thank you to the lurkers. Thank you to the scammers because y'all don't leave no comments. Y'all don't give no thumbs up. Y'all don't really share. But based on the numbers, we see y'all are still watching. So I appreciate that. And then for the scammers, the fact that y'all think the stuff that I'm putting out here is it worth putting in the time to put the bots and the scams on, hey, like, I gotta be doing something. Because if y'all noticing me on here, you only do it when you know that somebody's actually getting the traction. So I appreciate. Now, nonetheless, let's get into these stories, right? So, Ethereum Foundation makes it clear the merge will not improve fees and throughput. What's funny, I had made a post about this on TikTok, and then somebody tried to come at me telling me, no, you're wrong. They're talking about the bigger picture long run. And I'm just like, no, sir, you're wrong, because based on how it was being promoted, and the narrative that was being spun, I'm gonna get close up on this, right? The narrative that was being spun around the merge prior to the Ethereum Foundation coming out was all about how gas fees were gonna be lowered, all about how things are gonna be faster. There's even a video of Vitalik doing a presentation like within the last 2 months. I'm gonna say 3 months probably by the time this comes out, where he actually indicates that, oh, gas fees, everyone's happy about gas fees being lowered with the merge. Now, for the techie folks, they might be like, oh, he was talking about the longer run of how once more implementations and upgrades come in, then we can get to lower gas fees. But that is not how it was being marketed. That's what I don't like about y'all folks making those excuses for how Ethereum and for a number of these news platforms, CoinDesk, Cointelegraph, out here right now. Sorry, let me jump back. And I'm gonna get off of the high horse and not beat this too much down. But the bottom line is, like, they finally came out and clarified on Wednesday. The Ethereum Foundation clarified the merge will not reduce on-chain gas fees as highly anticipated from proof of work to proof of stake, which is now 29 days away. First off, it wasn't anticipated. That's how they were marketing this whole thing, because it was about the pump, it was about selling the utility and the talking points of proof of stake. And again, technically it's not even a friggin' utility of it because it's not going to help with gas fees, okay, or throughput for that matter. So there will still be congestion, and at some point there will definitely be a pump back up on the gas fees. I remember what it was like last year in 2021, even earlier this year for beginning of 2022, but last year was crazy for some of the things going on with the gas prices, okay? The article was going into a couple of things and noting how the page has been upgraded a couple of times since August. And again, I had wanted to cover this earlier. What they're saying now is, hey, once you look to, or once we get more upgrades and implementations of newer things going on with the merge, basically, yeah, we'll eventually get to this lower gas fee thing. But for right now, you got to look at layer 2 solutions, which is what it's saying here. While transaction fees on Ethereum will not change after the merge. Users who want lower gas fees will have to leverage layer 2 scaling solutions and wait for more Ethereum upgrades. Here's the thing that I don't like in regards to this whole thing about layer 2. What's also happening for the ability of convenience is that it is then taking people's ability away to interact with layer 1, the base layer, because the more convenient reduced gas fee options, the more non-technical options are at layer 2. There are things going on for layer 1, but X amount of that, what's the word, convenience factor is being produced in layer 2 options for how you can use those. And so people then forget and then also don't know or understand how to interact with layer 1, where that is where you have the technology or the technological freedom. And I'm not even going to beat the horse anymore. I'm just going to make this last point of the Ethereum Foundation has admitted it's not going to reduce gas fees. You're going to definitely have to wait a number of other months to years probably before that really comes into where it is a impactful thing within itself. But that's going to be X amount of more upgrades. Okay, so that's where I'm gonna leave that on. I'm gonna jump into this next story. So the US-Canada travel is not bouncing back, and officials on both sides of the border are worried. If you've been paying attention to this particular channel for how long in regards to my segment and stuff, I was talking about the Blockchain Futurist Conference. And because the Canadian government did not change back or reduce the friction points of being able to cross over, namely about this whole C19 mandate stuff and what they're doing with the app and all of that stuff, I had to miss out on the the Blockchain Futurist Conference. Oh, where am I going right now? It's late, y'all. I'm sorry, I'm tired. But the idea that I had to miss out on that because, hey, they weren't changing or reducing the travel ban stuff, which the irony of this whole thing is, right, is now the CDC has come out and said, hey, C19 advocacy wasn't what we told y'all it was going to be, or what we told y'all it was. It definitely goes away over time and it basically doesn't matter. But yet somehow the Canadian leadership, the government, is still pushing really hard on C19 mandates and following the app. And if you're not jabbied up, you can't come over here. And so I had to give my tickets away, and I was sad because I wanted to see my Canucks to the north. I haven't seen some folks in a good while, and I definitely want to have some FaceTime with people and being able to have dinner and talk and just catch up. The whole trekking cryptos to connect. That's how I'm looking at it right now. But nonetheless, here are these stories about what's been going on. And so now officials and stakeholders in Buffalo, Fort Erie, Ontario, Niagara Falls, New York, Niagara Falls, Ontario, as well as across the 3,000-mile border are voicing concerns that approach outrage. Local economies, depending on cross-border traffic, say they continue to suffer from the restrictions that long ago became unnecessary as COVID-19 levels eased. And like I said, for the time that this came out, mind you, this was, when was this initially dropped? This was July. I wanted to cover the story a while ago, y'all. We're in August. We're literally at the end of August by, I think, 5 days or something. Excuse me. And so now you have it that, like, again, CDC came out and said what they said, and yet Trudeau's leadership is still saying what they're saying. And it's basically affecting the bottom line of people who have businesses and economies for these cities that sit right next to the border and are dependent on the cross-border traffic, which is not happening. Why? Because some people be like, oh, the people who have the jibby jab, like, oh, they're not having a problem traveling. But are they the people who contribute the most to the local economy? Are they the people who contribute the most to the cross-border exchange in folks who buy something over here and take it back over there? Are they the ones who spend and look to cross back and forth for different family, personal related occasions, business occasions, such as myself, right? Or as well as just like annual things that happen across the border that people have been going to for years and decades, probably even generations. Nonetheless, here's where we are right now. So let me get into this. At a time when most people are getting back to an semblance of normality, the border continues in the U.S. and Canada. Border communities in the U.S. and Canada are not nearly where they should be, said Republican Brian Higgins, Democrat of Buffalo. This is the beginning of travel season for 2022, and we still have all this redundancy and obstacles that we need to get rid of. So again, this is at the beginning of June or July, right? And now here we are at the end of August. And I can only imagine it's even worse because the numbers didn't show out like it should. Again, depending on what you're paying attention to, we're technically in a recession. People are not spending or traveling as they quote normally would pre-C19. Things aren't looking like they were during the C19 wave. You had your Biden bucks, right? There's no Biden bucks right now. X amount of folks are running up their credit card bills in order to make it. Like, that's going on right now. So how do you think the cross-border tourism is really looking? I'm not going to run into this story anymore, really, because at the end of the day, what they're really showing, and this is back again, June, July, is like, they're like, hey, we're seeing that the numbers are dropping. In part, it's because of what's going on the Canadian side. Shout out to my Canucks to the north. I hope to see y'all sooner than later. But then the other part of it is, in the overall, the economy is not doing good as some people like to have you think. Bottom line, that's what it is. I'm gonna just leave it there, and I'll have the links for these in the comments, in the description, but you can definitely jump into that more if you want to. I imagine there are more updated stories on the things going on right now for how the economy is being affected. And so I will jump into this next and last story, which is out of Zero Hedge, and it is visualizing the global decline of fertility rates. Now, until I actually read this article, if you're not familiar with Zero Hedge, like, sometimes the articles can be long, sometimes they can really be sparse or short, and just really just poignant highlights of a topic. Over the last 50 years, fertility rates have dropped dramatically around the world. Drastically, sorry, there we go. Lord, I'm tired. I know it right now. So yeah, rates have dropped drastically around the world. As visual capitalist Carmen Ang details below. In 1952, the average global family had 5 children, and now they have less than 3. And I could definitely attest to this. When I look at both my mom's side and my pop's side for what the family life thing was like back then, for how many siblings they have, and then when I look at my grandparents, I can understand that. And then when I look at my siblings and how many kids we each have, I can see this. This makes sense to me. Here's what I did not realize until I actually read this. And I want to point out that I didn't actually come across this article on my own. It was based on Ken Sturgeon's work, which is somebody that I pay attention to. Not saying you got to do, what you pay attention to this person in particular, but I do think that he definitely makes some relevant points, and he brings some good sources to be able to be like, oh, let me look into the subject more, or at least be aware of a thing. And so what's the difference between fertility rates and birth rates? I did not know this until I actually read this. Birth rates, the total number of births in a year per 1,000 individuals. Really, we're saying 1,000 females. I'm just saying. Fertility rate, the total number of births in a year per 1,000 women of reproductive age. Now, at first glance, you would think, if you're saying that it's women who give birth, of course that's reproductive age. But apparently it makes a difference because they had to define it as 2 different things. I'm not 100% certain on the why they define it as 2 different things the way they do, but I would imagine, let's say a 59-year-old has a kid. Is she in the reproductive age population versus, let's say, and this might sound triggering for some people, the 16-year-old to the 45-year-old range, right? X amount of the population, as in what phase of age, especially when we talk about women and childbearing years. Funny enough, not funny, haha, but ironically, really, I actually know a number of females who grew up believing that they, and I'm talking about like grew up like into adulthood, who were made to understand that they would never have kids. Lo and behold, I got a handful of friends who have had kids over the last couple of years. And I know for them, that was a very life-changing thing. But I'm not going to run down that rabbit hole. Let me jump back into this story and finish it out. The point here is that this is from, what's the name of the company that did this? Visual Capitalist, and they're really good at their things that they do. So this shows the line of what the world setup looks like. Here's Nigeria, Senegal, Ghana. Yo, the US is down here, dog. I just want to point that the US is down here. South Korea, same thing. They lower than us. Japan is also on this list too. No, not on this particular list, but something else I was paying attention to. They down there too. They ain't getting higher than us. Now, here's one of the things they bring up for, what can be a contributing factor of this. And we talk about women empowerment, particularly in education and the workforce. What's funny is during the 90s, there was a period of where we went through this women struggle in the workforce. And then during the 2000s, it got into, we need to get more women educated. We need to get more women into STEM. And so here we are now. And arguably, is this the negative blowback effect for having women being on par in education? I don't know. And honestly, I don't even want to think that's what it is. I have a thought or two on it. And yeah, this is my social. I'm going to say it this way. I've seen the argument made about how when you start having more education across the population of a society, the society changes in their focus of family building versus career building or monetary gaining building, which we're not in the agricultural age anymore. We're in the technological age. So it's a different setup for how you raise your family to build generational wealth and, quote, pave it forward. Education plays a part in that. I don't know what to really call it. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I don't know what to call it, but I do see, or I'm of the generation and era where I see this. It makes sense for the females that I know around me who are married, who are single, how many kids they have, for even myself, for how many kids I have. This makes sense as far as the education and the empowerment and the workforce thing. I don't want to beat this horse to death. I just want to point out that it is being noticed on a global scale that different countries and their populations are decreasing in the fertility rate of childbearing age women. In part because women are not looking to be in the same family segment setup as they were 40, 30, 50, 60 years ago compared to their parents' generation, their grandparents' generation. We're not in that same workforce era anymore. It's a different thing. Nonetheless, I'm not going to beat the horse to death. I'm just going to let that ride where it is. If you feel like saying something, the comments are always open. Plus, I'm always on Twitter, so you can definitely catch me on there and debate me about that one. I'm not going to say I'm going to have an answer you like, though. Just saying. Nonetheless, I'm Trek with 2Ks. This is my two Satoshis, and I'm on that channel called right here, CBTV. If you don't know, now you do know. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. Until the next one. Double up. 3 or 4 times, I ain't telling no lies. I just run it.